Silent House is a 2011 American independent psychological horror film which was directed by Chris Kentis and Laura Lau, starring Elizabeth Olsen. The film had a budget of about $2 million and earned a box office return of just over $13 million, which of course back in 2011 was pretty decent for that kind of return on a horror film. It premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in January of 2011 before then getting purchased by Universal Pictures for further distribution. It was shot in a rather unique manner using real-time footage and was manufactured in a way to make it appear as if it was a single continuous shot similar to that of Alfred Hitchcock's 1948 film Rope. The story follows Olsen's character, who is terrorised by a force in her family's vacation home as she cleans it out alongside her father and her uncle. As they begin cleaning out the house to prepare for sale, the doorbell rings, where we are introduced to a girl who is childhood friends with Olsen's character, but she seems to be unable to place her in her memory. Soon after this, she begins hearing her father fall, and as she rushes to his side, it turns out that he's injured and incapable of moving. Olsen then begins to believe that there's someone in the house stalking her and hunting down her family. The film was shot on a Canon EOS 5D Mark II back in October and November 2010 on location in a house in New York. The house utilised was completely blank and got covered in wallpaper and props to the specifications of the directors. This allowed the house to be curated in a way that suited what the film wanted it to be. Due to the requirement for them to make it feel as if it was done in a single take, we needed to have a location that permitted that exact kind of thing to happen, that you weren't coming across obstacles or situations where you were going to be blocked or struggling to get past certain circumstances or situations. As you go through the film, you begin to understand Olsen's character through a lens that the camera basically is focusing on her to a point that you only then come to realise, if it's a single shot and she's the only character really that we interact with on a consistent basis, that we're basically inside her brain. And this allows us to understand some of the things that she is doing while turning her basically into a narrator, the narrator's curse, or false narrator. Like, we're going to be in a situation where everything that she sees or hears is what we begin to believe to be true without having any ground or basis for that perhaps to be the case. The script for this film was developed after Laura Lau saw a Uruguayan film, La Casa Muda, back in 2010, which obviously means there was a very quick turnaround for this type of film to get released. If she saw it in 2010, then wrote the script, got funding, filmed it, and then released it in 2011, very, very fast. So the script was created on the back of watching the film rather than adapting it from paper that existed for the film, and the script ended up being around 60 pages, and Lau was aware that for this film there was no way to fix things in post, so for the shooting to keep pace with the release date that they wanted, there were times where multiple scenes had to be shot to allow the audience to feel it was a single shot, and then for the filmmakers to have enough scenes and choices for them to make in the film that we ended up in a situation where everything just kind of made sense then. The story does have something to do with a true story of something that went on in a Uruguayan village back around 85 years ago. Due to the way in which the film was shot, it was described by the directors as an experimental film, and with them taking inspiration from other single shot films and that to be the focus of the production, it was interesting to see how they could create a feature that felt that way while also being more insular and terrifying to the viewer. They did speak of how their favourite non-single take film that they took inspiration from was The Strangers, which is another great horror film, and something that at the end of the day there's a line in The Strangers that has always stuck with me when the person who was invaded or intruded upon asked the villains in The Strangers why they picked them, and the answer was, "You answered the door." That was quite terrifying. But yeah, Silent House, it's a good film, it's interesting, but again, it's really good for a one-time view. Once you know the ending, it kind of makes it hard to sit through the rest of the film. But up until you get to that point, it is quite gripping to sit there and try and figure out what's going on and where it's going to go. And it's also very interesting to see Olsen before kind of the stardom came of Age of Ultron in 2014, 2015? I can't remember when Age of Ultron was. 2015? I want to say, yeah, it's maybe 4 years before Ultron, and getting cast as Scarlet Witch and then having a few other roles such as Godzilla as well, I think was 2013. So yeah, just it's definitely an interesting take, and the film does feel single shot, or a single take, whichever way you want to phrase it, which was an inspired choice and something that paid off in the end.